Most people assume it's about introversion, that you're simply wired to prefer solitude, quiet by nature, independent by choice. And on the surface, that explanation seems to fit. But psychology has uncovered something more complicated beneath it. Something that has very little to do with personality and almost everything to do with survival. Because maybe you don't just prefer being alone, maybe you feel safer alone. And that's an entirely different thing. Think about what that word actually means. Safe, not comfortable, not relaxed. Safe, the kind of feeling that arrives when a threat has passed. When you can finally breathe without thinking about it. When you stop monitoring, stop adjusting, stop quietly bracing for whatever comes next. That's not a personality preference. That's a nervous system reaching for rest. But here's what makes this strange. The threat you're escaping isn't always obvious. There's no danger in the room. The people around you may be perfectly kind, and yet something deep in the body says, "This is too much. I need to get out." And this is where things become interesting, because psychology has found that for some people, other people themselves became associated with unpredictability, often not through dramatic events, but through small, repeated moments. A parent whose mood shifted without warning, a childhood where the emotional atmosphere was difficult to read, relationships where you never quite knew which version of someone you were going to get, and your nervous system, doing exactly what it was designed to do, began to learn a quiet pattern. People are unpredictable, and unpredictable things require constant monitoring. Most people stop here and call this anxiety, but that's only part of the story. What psychology reveals is that this kind of monitoring is exhausting in a way that's almost impossible to explain. Being around others doesn't just feel tiring, it requires an entire background process running continuously beneath the surface, scanning faces, reading tone, tracking mood, calculating what's expected, preparing for whatever might shift. And solitude doesn't just offer quiet, it switches that process off. For a nervous system that has been running that process for years, maybe decades, being alone isn't emptiness, it's relief. But there's a deeper layer to this that changes everything. What looks like emotional distance is often emotional overload in disguise, because people who feel safest alone aren't usually disconnected from others. Often, you feel the presence of others more intensely, not less. You pick up on things other people miss, tension in a voice, a slight shift in energy, an unspoken expectation hanging in the air. What reads as aloofness from the outside is sometimes sensitivity running so high that it eventually needs to shut down entirely just to recover. And here is the final contradiction, the one that reframes everything. You are often someone who cares deeply, who feels things strongly, who has an extraordinary capacity for connection, but that same capacity without a sense of safety becomes overwhelming. And so your nervous system makes a quiet, unconscious decision. Connection is meaningful, but it costs too much. Solitude is sustainable. So when you pull away, when you need more space than most, when you come alive in private and go quiet in a crowd, it may not be that you want less connection. It may be that you've learned to protect yourself from connection that never felt entirely safe to enter. The behavior looks like distance, but beneath it, there is often longing, carefully held at arm's length by a nervous system that once had very good reasons to be cautious. And maybe understanding that changes everything about how you see yourself.